So we are continuing with slot and filler structure. We have seen the weak slot and filler structure before. So the slot and filler structure are divided into two as weak slot and filler structure and strong slot and filler structure. And we are through with the weak slot and filler structure, which are divided into two as semantic nets and frames. We have seen both of them, and now we will be going with our treating strong slot and filler structure, namely conceptual dependency and scripts. So let us move along with strong slot filler structure, and the first one is conceptual dependency. So in 1977, Roger C. Schank developed a conceptual dependency structure. We'll be using the short form CD for conceptual dependency. It is used for representing knowledge which is powerful enough to represent the concept of the sentence of natural language. Can be any language, any natural language, and the sentence in that can be represented in conceptual dependency form. In a language, we can have many sentences which is having the same meaning. We call it as a concept. So if the concept is unique, can be represented in many ways in a spoken or natural language, that be English, Hindi or Malayalam. The same concept statements can be represented using a unique format in the conceptual dependency form. So it states that different sentences which has the same meaning should have some unique conceptual dependency representation. So instead of having many representation, we will be having a unique representation provided the concept is unique. So the goals of this theory are to help in the drawing of inference from sentences. We should draw some information from the sentence so that there will not be many sentences for inferring something from the sentence, and it is independent of the words used in the original input. So it can be as we have seen in the previous example, like took, gave, etc. If the concept of these two words are same with respect to the object we are using, then the difference of words doesn't matter here. We will have a single representation using conceptual dependency. So that is to say that for any two or more sentences that are identical in meaning, there should be only one representation of that meaning. You have been introduced to these four sentences before, which is looking different in a language, but their concept is one and the same, because in all the four statements we are having two agents each, which are A and B. Then the object that is being used is pen in all the four statements, and the initial state of the pen is with B and the final state of the pen is with A. So all these four statements, even though they represent four sentences in a natural language, we can represent them with conceptual dependency using a single format. So that will be our point of discussion today. We had two ways of representing natural languages using semantic net and frames. They have their own advantages and disadvantages. So we'll be looking into the disadvantages here. In semantic net, it has lack of formality, which means we are using nodes and arcs or edges for representing a sentence in the semantic net format. So we can use inheritance from multiple sources in a semantic network form, so that properties are being inherited into its hierarchical follower. So when it is inherited from multiple sources, and if exceptions are needed in that inheritance, then we cannot gather accurate result from that structure. So the meaning of the word or sentence that is being generated from this semantic net will be confusing. Then another problem is, if facts are placed incorrectly, then also we will be getting a wrong meaning from the sentence. Another one is, both these things happen due to the fact that there are no standards about nodes and arc values in semantic net. So these are the disadvantages of semantic net. And in frames, we know that frames is an extension of semantic net, and at each node we can have more information in the form of fields, and fields in turn can be represented by other subframes also. So we can have a link from one frame to another in a sequence manner. So if some modifications are required in a frame, this modification has to be taken into its chain of links to other frames also. So that is a disadvantage. So as against these disadvantages, we will be using conceptual dependency. It provides a structure to which nodes representing information can be placed. So information represented by nodes can be included in this conceptual dependency, and we will be using specific set of primitives or stages which we will be discussing soon. So we will be using some primitives for representation, CD representation, and if we are having some values, they will be having different levels from main object value to the granular level. Suppose if we say that basic information can contain anything like our name, age, then address for communication, phone number, etc. It depends on the person who is entering the basic information, because it is general. Suppose if we are detailing it to some more level like address, then it contains only address. Any person who sees this label as address will enter only address into it, whereas a person who is seeing basic information can enter anything in that field or slot. So CD provides some more levels of granularity so that accurate results can be stored there. Then the sentences are represented as a series of diagrams showing actions using both abstract and real physical situations. Here again we will be using node-like structures for forming this format. The agents and the objects are represented here. We will be using some agents, and we will use some aids for these agents as objects. So the agents will be performing some action on the objects in the CD representation. The actions are built up from a set of primitives which are called as acts, primitive acts, which can be modified by tensor modifiers. We will be having some, say 11 primitive activities or called as acts, which can be modified using some tensors or modifiers to have a different meaning or sense. So this will be clear if you go through the next slides, and we are having some examples also after this. So these are the primitive acts. So we'll be using these words, a-trans, which means transfer of an abstract relationship. Example, give. If we say A gave a rose to B, there we will be using a-trans instead of this gave. Similarly, A took a rose from B. There again we will be using a-trans in place of took. So what happened? With this representation, A and B are the agents here, but we have two sentences because one sentence is using gave, other sentence is using took. So instead of this gave and took, we will be using a-trans. So transferring of these objects in any sentences can be that transferring activity can be replaced with a-trans. Then another one is p-trans, is the physical movement of location. If a person moves from A to B, A is a location, B is another location. If a person is moving from A to B, then we will be using p-trans for that movement activity, for that action. So a-trans is moving of an object, and p-trans is the physical change of a location. So A went to school. For this went, we will be using p-trans. Likewise, we are having so many primitive activities. So many means, to be precise, we are having 11 activities which can perform which can depict any sentence based on actions with these 11 primitive acts. So propel means physical force. When we apply a physical force on an object, we will be using propel. Example, A pushed B means pushed will be replaced with propel. Similarly, m-trans, transfer of mental information. A told a story. So told will be replaced with m-trans. M-build, construction of new information from old. For decision making and all, we will be using our previous knowledge. So A decided to write the exam. So that decision is being replaced with m-build. Speak, uttering a sound, say. A spoke to B. Spoke can be replaced with speak. So we should not confuse it with the English word speak. So speak is a primitive act, like a-trans, p-trans, etc. So spoke is replaced with speak. Then we can have attend. If we are focusing on something like listening, watching, etc., we can use the term attend. A is watching a match, watching can be replaced with attend. Then move, movement of a body part, not the physical transformation or transition of a whole body, like A moving to B. It is not like that. Moving a part of a person, like moving a hand, moving a leg, moving head, etc., can be replaced with move. Example, A kicked the ball. The kicking is done with his leg. So this kicked can be replaced with move. Then grasp means catching something. A caught the ball. Caught can be replaced with grasp. Then ingest, taking something inside, like the actor is ingesting an object, like A ate a banana. So ate can be replaced with ingest for eating. Eat, ate, or consume, etc. can be replaced with ingest. Then expel, releasing something from our body. I am sweating. Sweating can be replaced with expel. Likewise, we can have 11 primitive acts for representing different actions. The actions can be on the objects and it can be performed on real world activities. Then we have some primitive building blocks. CD introduced several ideas like language free using primitive acts. The activities that we have discussed before is independent of any language. It is not dependent on English, it is not dependent on Malayalam or Hindi, etc. Any language sentence can be replaced with these primitive acts. Then small number of primitive acts. We have only just 11 primitive acts which can be used for representing many sentences, thousands of sentences. Then different ways map to same internal representation. We can have different sentences mapped onto a single form which is used with primitive acts. Besides these acts, we can also use primitive building blocks, which are the set of allowable dependencies in the concept in a sentence, where PP is a real world object, which is a short form of picture procedures, where these are the agents performing actions. So if A is an agent, we have seen A and B in the case of pen, so A and B are the agents. So we can replace those A and B with PP. So in other words, we are generalizing the format with PP so that PP can be replaced with any person. It can be A, B or any other person. Then act is the real world action. PA, attribute of objects. They are picture aiders that these picture procedures or agents will be making actions on these objects PA. Then attribute of actions can be represented as AA, time represented with T, locations with LOC. And just bear in mind all these things. It's not necessary to by heart it. With some examples, you will be getting a clear idea about how we can make the concept into a single form. Make some similar concepts into a single form. Then we will be using some building components like some arrows which are bidirectional, can be single directional, can be a double arrow, it can be triple arrow, etc. It indicates the direction of dependency. Arrows indicate the direction of dependency, and we can write some letters over the arrows which indicate certain relationships. If we write O above the arrow, it means object. R means it is a recipient or donor, sender or receiver. If it is I, we can say it as an instrument, as in the case of if you are eating ice cream with a spoon, then spoon is a instrument there. It is an instrument. So there we write I. Then D for destination. Suppose we are going home, then home can be our destination. D. Double arrows indicate that it is a two-way link between the actor PP and action ACT. Actions are being represented by those 11 primitives. Then we can have some modifiers also. Most probably we will be using tense modifiers, because if you are using take, then it is a present tense. If we use took, it is a past tense. And if you are using some future tense words, then we will be using F. If it is past tense, we will be using P along with arrows. If nothing is used along with arrows, it is treated as present tense. So in the absence of any modifier implies that it is present tense. So modifiers can be in any form. It can specify happiness, illness, broken objects, etc. I've provided some examples in the notes. Just go through for information purpose only. So any kind of statement can be represented using this CD formation. Let us try with an example. So we have seen 4 sentences before having the same concept. Let us take 2 from them. Let the first sentence be A took a pen from B. And the second sentence is B gave her pen to A. So these are the 2 sentences having the same concept, where A and B are the agents and pen is the object that is being transferred between them. So this can be represented, the first sentence can be represented as A, which is an actor or agent. The pen can move from one side to other in any direction. So we are using bi-direction arrow. Then took is the action on pen, which is the object. So took is the action performed and pen is the object on which action is performed. And this pen is being transferred between 2 agents, namely A and B. So A is the recipient, B is the giver or sender, or we can say donor. Then the second sentence can also be represented in the same way. Here B is the first actor. Here also we can have bidirectional movement of the pen. And gave is the action to be performed on the object pen. Here again the 2 agents are A and B. B is the giver and A is the receiver. So we are having a format for the above 2 sentences, and we have to improve this representation by generalizing these 2 sentences into a single form. So if we do like that, we can represent any number of sentences having the same concept into a single form of representation, which is the theme used in conceptual dependency. Dependent direction is shown by the arrowheads. So we can represent these 2 structures as a single form, like say we can represent the past tense as P and object as O along with the arrow. Then we can write A double arrow, and we can use A trans for movement of the object. It is the transfer of abstract relation. The pen is being moved between A and B. That can be represented as B to A. Then B and A are receiver and sender, or we can say it as receiver and donor. Instead of A, we can use B also. Instead of this A, we can write B also here. Then we can write a R, meaning that it is a receiver sender group. This is a receiver sender representation. and we can write an O here representing this pen. We can write P here for this gave, past tense of give, and took, past tense of take. So in that way we can represent this sentence. We can even replace this A and B with PP, which is the simple primitives, picture procedures. It is said as PP is the short form of picture procedures. They will be performing the actions. So we can replace this A with PP, B also with another PP. This A can also be replaced by PP. And their action is being performed on pen. So this pen can be replaced with picture aiders. These PPs are being aided by this object. So they are represented as PA, picture aiders. So here we can have a PP. We can have a past tense here P. Then we can represent a trans representing transfer of abstract relation, and an object. This can be a PA here, so that not only pen, anything can be passed between these two agents, and these two agents can be replaced with PP, so that not only A and B, any two persons can be replaced in place of PP. So this is the common representation of many statements having the same concept.